Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Derek, author and webmaster of Gematrinator.com. However, not the author of a prepared OBS presentation right now. So please bear with me here while I get my windows right. I suppose it's a good thing I didn't have the stream key showing. That could have been annoying. So in today's video, this is actually the second video I did today. The first one was on a plane crash in Tehran, Iran, a nation that the United States just happened to start having conflict with. And this crash is said to have killed 176 people on board. And in that video earlier today, I covered the numerology of this crash, which happened on 108, which is the ordinal gematria of Tehran, Iran. The word crash equaling 49 and 22. Today, the first date in 2020 with 49 numerology. So after looking into this, I started peering a little bit more into plane crashes involving New York City because this whole plane crash had so much 9/11 coding into it. I thought there must have been a little more to it. So while glancing around today, I came across this story about the first plane to accidentally hit a skyscraper in New York City. This occurred in the year 1945 when a B-25 bomber struck the building in the fog. This was the first of two accidental aircraft strikes on a skyscraper in New York City within a year from one another. The next one occurred in 1946 on May 20th, and what's really interesting about this is that the building that this one occurred at, 40 Wall Street, is currently known as the Trump Building. Now, this crash at 40 Wall Street occurred in the year 1946, which is the same year Donald Trump was born. In fact, this crash was on May 20th, which falls a little over 3 weeks before his birthday. So I looked at this and I said, okay, we know there's going to be a very deep numeric riddle here. So that's absolutely the case. So we're going to start by talking about this crash, the 1946 one at 40 Wall Street. Let's begin with the address at the top of the page, the number 40. The city of New York is on the 40th parallel north. Using the reverse alphabetic order, the cipher where Z is assigned 1, Y is 2, X gets 3, all the way through A, getting the number 26, the phrase plane crash sums to 173. 173 is a prime number. That would be the 40th prime number. So already a prime relationship to the gematria of plane crash through the address. But what's particularly interesting about this building's name now is that Trump Building in reverse gematria sums to 185 and 77. Notice how Donald John Trump sums to 185 using the standard alphabetic order, where A is 1 through Z is 26. World Trade Center also sums to 185 and 77 in reduction. The 77 also the value of September 11th, the date on which the World Trade Center came down. But the 185 is interesting for another reason. The Jewish holiday of mourning Tisha B'Av has gematria of 9/11, and this is the holiday that commemorates the loss of the two temples. And in Jewish gematria, this sums to 911, just like how the two towers in the United States came down on the date 9/11. Tisha B'Av commemorating the loss of Solomon's Temple, which equals 185 in reverse ordinal. So this building stamped with the same 185 that the World Trade Center was, as well as Donald Trump. And remember, in Jewish Gematria, Donald summing to 119, the inverse of 9/11. Another interesting fact about this building is its height, 927 feet tall. In Satanic Gematria, September the 11th equals 927. And if you're wondering why I wrote the date with "the" on it, first of all, it was called this by the media in the aftermath of the event. This also sums to 227, very significant number in ordinal, and in English extended, it sums to 1433, the 227th prime number. We're going to look at this phrase again in a second. So the crash in 1946, again, this was less than a year after the crash in 1945, where a bomber struck the Empire State Building. So this crash occurred in the year 45. The word skyscraper sums to 45 in reduction gematria, this being the cipher, also called Pythagorean, where each double-digit number is reduced to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation. This number is significant to Donald Trump as well, who is the 45th U.S. president. The fact that this was a B25 also really stands out, because if you measure from the date of this crash, which was July 28th of 1945, to the September 11th attacks in 2001, you find it's a span of exactly 20,500 days. And the B25. And then a year later, in 1946, we have another crash, this time on the date 20/5. Here you see May 20th, 20/5. Measuring from that date to the birth of Donald Trump gives us exactly 25 days. In reduction gematria, Trump sums to 25. The 25th prime number is 97. Using the alphabetic order, plane crash sums to 97. And what I really appreciate about the 97 here is how this shows up in the name of the pilot who was flying this plane in 1945. William F. Smith Jr. sums to 97 in reverse reduction. Also notice the 74. We're going to talk about this number in the death of Cory Lidle, the New York Yankees pitcher, who was involved in the third and only other plane crash in which a plane accidentally struck a skyscraper in New York City's history. Again, the key word is accidentally, but all of these events aligning to 9/11 as well. In the alphabetic order, William F. Smith Jr. sums to 182, which is the Jewish gematria of the word crash. So whenever we talk about Donald Trump, we find that the number 58 tends to be very significant. Donald Trump was the winner of the 58th presidential election, which fell in 2016, which is 58 years after the year 58. Then he was sworn in on a date with 58 numerology. He announced his candidacy from a 58-tall tower. He even hired a 58-year-old to conduct the ceremony on his inauguration. Well, using prime numbers, which is the alphabetic order, 1 through 26, but with related prime numbers, which we've been looking at this entire time, of course, Donald John Trump gives us a gematria of 580. And this is a number that's also significant to this Tisha B'Av holiday. In reduction, Solomon's Temple equals 58. Notice how Second Temple gives us 58, so does Herod's Temple. And then Third Temple equals 58. And during Donald Trump's presidency, we've heard a lot of discussions about a possible construction of the Third Temple. So think about how strange it is in the first place that Trump owns a building on Wall Street when his campaign was largely built around putting a border wall. Well, Donald Trump sums to 48 in reduction gematria. The word wall equaling 58 in ordinal. This is also the value of the word plane, 48. Now, 48, a significant number to the moon. Luna equals 48. The 48th prime number is 223, which happens to be the Hebrew value of the moon. And there's 223 months, or synodic months, in the Saros cycle, which allows us to predict the next lunar or solar eclipse. Well, if you measure from the 1946 plane crash that struck the current present-day Trump building to the attacks of 9/11-2001, you get exactly 20,203 days. And remember, the 223 was also in the pilot of the other plane that crashed a year earlier, William F. Smith Jr., 223 reverse. Now, in this crash at Trump Tower, or Trump Building, I couldn't find the exact pilot's name. We're told that 5 were killed, but it never specified which one was the pilot, so I couldn't run the gematria of his name. But how interesting is this, you know? One crash, 20,500 days. It was a B-25 bomber. And then the next one was 25 days before Trump was born. Plane crash, the 25th prime. So definitely a lot going on here. A lot more than meets the eye, I would say. So next we're going to look at the death of Cory Lidle. Again, this was a New York Yankees pitcher who died in the year 2006 when a plane that he was taking flying lessons in struck an apartment complex building. So this one was pretty interesting as well. First of all, Cory Lidle dying in that crash, which was on October 11th. And when you look at the date October 11th, how it's written, either 10/11 or 11/10, you get the number 111 since zeros are ignored in numerology. In the alphabetic order, New York sums to 111. His full name gematria is Cory. Well, his full name is Cory Fulton Lidle, which gives us a gematria value of 191. These, of course, being the same 3 digits in the date 9/11. Another interesting thing about this number, though, is that it's a prime number, the 43rd prime number. And in my video about the September 11th attacks, which might still be linked below in the description, let me check before I say that. No, it's not, but it is on my other channel, one of the few videos on there. Well, anyway, the destruction of the Twin Towers was essentially a symbolic representation of this, the crucifixion of Christ. Jesus Christ equals 43. Of course, Jesus summing to 11. The 2 towers standing like an 11. They stood 110 stories tall. One of them even had a 110-meter antenna. It was Rockefeller who put in the plans to build the tower, and then Osama bin Laden brought him down 110. But anyway, looking again at this prime number cipher, which I think is the most significant mathematical one, the city of New York sums to 373 in this method. And this is a prime number, the 74th prime number. Significant because the World Trade Center sits right at the edge of the 74th meridian. September the 11th equals 1373 in Jewish gematria. 74 is the value of Jesus Christ in reverse. His full name, Cory Fulton Lidle, equals 74 in reduction. In fact, his middle name, Fulton, has that 74 in reverse as well. The name Jesus also equals 74. In the reverse order, it sums to 61. The name Cory equals 61. And measuring from his death to the 9/11 attacks gives us exactly 61 months. Something else that's interesting about this is that if you look at the number of sidereal months from 9/11 to the date that Cory Lidle died, and I'll show you why this is significant. It's pretty plain in a second here, but a sidereal month is approximately 27.322 days. So if you take this, 1,856 days, divided by 27.322, you get just about 68 sidereal months. And again, the moon is always significant. We explained that at the end of the last post. And the reason 68 is significant is because in reverse, Solomon's Temple sums to 68. 1968 is the year that the World Trade Center first began construction, the same year 911 became the emergency dialing code. George W. Bush graduating Yale University that year. So we talked a little bit about Tisha B'Av and 9/11. Now, if you flip this number upside down, you get 116. Cory Lidle was born on the date 3/22 of 1972. This date had primary numerology of 116, again, an upside-down 9/11. Remember how in 40 Wall Street, the Trump building, we had a crash at the 58th story? We talked about the significance of the number 58 and Solomon's Temple. The name Lidle sums to 58 in Jewish Gematria, and look what date he made his major league debut on. May 8th, the date written 5/8. And then the year was 97. Plane crash summing to 97, like we mentioned earlier. Plane crash also 43. Remember, the 43rd prime is 191, which is Cory Lidle's full name. As far as the plane crash summing to 97, this is also found in his standard birth numerology, 3/22/72. And remember, 322, the number of days in a sidereal month, 27.322. We'll get there in a second. In reduction, Cory Lidle equals 49, which is the same as Korash in the alphabetic order. In reverse, Cory Lidle equals 140 and 50, which is the same as airplane. If you measure from the September 11th attacks to Cory Lidle's birthday, you find that they happened 173 days later. Remember, plane crash in reverse, summing to 173. And then, as we mentioned, he was born on 3/22, this being the skull and bones number. Bonesman George W. Bush, again, who graduated in 68, the same year the World Trade Center began construction. He was president at the time of 9/11 and still was in office when Cory Lidle died. But what is super interesting about Cory Lidle's date of birth, because 1972 was a leap year, he was born on the 82nd day of 72. In the major leagues, Cory Lidle won 82 games and lost 72. There's a couple more things here that I thought were pretty interesting, but it's amazing how the same numbers appear in all of these incidents. And, of course, it makes you question the real story about what we're seeing in these stories, because it's hard for me to really comprehend how a B-52 bomber could just strike the Empire State Building over New York. What's it doing over there anyway? It doesn't make sense. All right, guys, want to thank everybody for jumping in live at a pretty decent viewer count. It always helps when I schedule ahead of time, I suppose. But I'm going to end her there. Again, please check out my video on my channel about the Iranian plane crash today, because it's so interesting what happens when you pick a fight with the United States. Not only do you get missiles, but then when you retaliate, you get a couple earthquakes near your power plant. You end up with a plane crash at your airport. Pretty wild news cycle we're getting here in 2020. And I've been busy so far this year, and I can see that continuing going forward as this madness continues. All right, guys. Thanks again. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time.